How'd we get here? That's not what we were. We were in Tov Kuf Yud Gimel.
Tov Kuf.
That's where you.
5:13.
That's where you had us. That's what we were learning last week. We learned this halacha over here.
5:13. Okay.
Yeah.
So
all right.
let me just at least
Maybe we didn't learn that. Maybe I missed something, but
let's at least put that over there, and then
maybe we should really check it out. Okay. Dalid. Tov Kuf Yud Gimel Dalid. Mutter lichvois. Okay, we speak about an egg that's hatched on, not hatched, that's laid on Yom Tov, and it's mukseh, and you don't want it to get broken. So you're allowed to take a kli and protect it. You know, you cover it up and you protect it so that it shouldn't get ruined. Now, what's the subject? There's first of all, there's one subject that if you see an egg is going to come out of a chicken, you could not put a kli underneath it to catch the egg, because then it's mevatel kli me'echonoi. A kli is not allowed to be made mukseh on Shabbos.
And you designated before Shabbos to catch that.
I don't think so. There are ways to do it. You could put something in it. No, there are different ways to do it. You could do it, but I don't think that you could just by designating it do it. All right, because nothing happens by designating it.
Okay, so let's say you use it. If you use it during the week to catch eggs, can you continue using it on Shabbos?
No, because eggs during the week aren't mukseh.
But that's,
maybe we should
the kli is made for catching eggs.
The svara that you're saying, very close to that, is set over by the Sfas Emes in Shabbos, and his subject is, can you put garbage in a garbage can on Shabbos? Because garbage is mukseh, and when you put garbage in the garbage can, you make the kli mukseh. So the halacha should be that it's usher to put garbage, not fresh garbage, to put
in an empty garbage can to put garbage in.
Right. That should be the halacha. No.
That is it.
Garbage can is not made for that.
So the way that it's set over is, he says that's not called mevatel kli me'echonoi. That's shimush kli lehechonoi. That's what it, that's the way he says it.
To be a process from before Shabbos, it doesn't help you anything.
Yeah. All right, but we're not learning mukseh right now. But that's so. Therefore, we don't discuss the halacha of catching the egg. But to put a kli on top of it, you could always take the kli off. So you wouldn't move out to the kli because it could still be used for other things. I can make my salad in it and then put it back on top of the egg. Now, but the halacha over here is vavad shelo yiga ba hakli. These words are extremely important because people are under an assumption that's wrong. And the assumption that people have is from a place that it's right, but it's just a misusage of it. People think, are you allowed to touch mukseh?
yes.
Okay. Now, why are you allowed to touch mukseh?
This is to move it.
No, to move it.
Okay. So how much does it have to be moved that then it becomes usher? So anything which could move even a small amount is usher to touch. And therefore, in Shulchan Aruch it says in Hilchos Shabbos, if you have a lantern that's hanging, you have a chandelier, you're not allowed to touch it. You're not allowed to touch it. That's right.
It's going to move no matter what.
Now, how much does it move? Right, that's enough. Okay? So, if you have a egg and you put a kli on it, so the halacha over here says something fascinating. You have to be careful that you don't cause the egg to move, because you're not allowed to move mukseh. Okay, so that's this halacha. Mutar chapas ala kli kedei shelo yishaver, ubevad shelo yiga boy hakli. Says the Mishnah Berurah, the motzui linanei ha'beitza ayadei negia kolshehu mipnei shehi agula. I don't think this Mishnah Berurah needs any explanation, right? That's even though,
even if it doesn't move from its place where you don't move it over, just wobble it.
right?
If it's sitting on hay, then it's going to be more stable there.
If it's sitting on hay, you don't need to put a kli on top of it.
You don't want the chicken sitting on it.
All right, the chicken's not going to hurt it by sitting on it. The chickens know how to do that.
Make it not kosher for an egg.
Professional.
Okay.
What would be the din around? Let's suppose you don't want to preserve the egg, but for example, say you've got what we call colloquially one of these flying rats that's trying to make a nest on your balcony. Pigeons are also called, we call them flying rats. It's trying to make a nest on the balcony, it's laid an egg, and you want to stop it returning, so you take a kli, and without touching the egg, you put it over the egg. Is that the same din? You're not, first of all, I speak about protecting the egg from being broken, but here, you want to prevent this creature from accessing the egg and hope it will go away.
I think you'd be allowed to do that.
On Shabbos it would be the same din, or?
Yes. Okay. Okay, Sif Hey. Im nolda b'yom tov rishon, muteris b'yom tov sheni. Because the halacha is that only one day is Yom Tov. So if it was born on the first day of Yom Tov, so there's no problem. If it was born on the second day of Yom Tov, there's also no problem. If no the Yom Tov Rishon muteres b'yom sheni. Why? Because we'll say that.
Whichever day was you.
Right. Okay. Aber b'shnei yomim tovim shel Rosh Hashanah v'chein v'Shabbos v'Yom Tov hasmuchim zel lezeh, where both of them are kodesh, so there you have a problem of achana, and it's also even on the second day. V'im Yom Tov Rishon v'Sheni nolda v'nolda v'Shabbos shelifneihem, and if you have a 3-day Yom Tov starting off with Shabbos, that happens like in Shavuos in America a lot. So then the second day of Yom Tov would also be mutter, just like it coming after Chol. Okay. All right.
Or this year Pesach.
Pesach, you can only have 2 days. I don't know. You can have 3 days?
This year with Shabbos and
Yeah, okay. Okay. Why is your Rosh Hashanah different? Mention sheyom mishnei yomim hem kodesh ki yom echad oroch hem chashuven ubesavik nolda b'rishon muter af b'yom tov sheni shel Rosh Hashanah. If you have a suffix, it was nolda in the rishon because maybe it was born beforehand, so then you can be makel. Chen kosav v'knesset hagdolah Shabbos machmer because you have to be choishesh, maybe it was laid on Rosh Hashanah. Okay. The birthing of the egg, is that what it's called? The laying of the egg makes it that it can become edible. One day prepared it for the other day. If you have Yom Tov on Rishon V'Sheni, Lafuka Yom Tov M'haya B'Yom Shabbos Kodesh B'Yom Rishon D'Aser B'Yom Tov Rishon. Okay, that'll be Aser. Mutter B'Yom Sheni T'Monashach Ima Rishon Haya Kodesh Hayom Chol V'Im Hayom Kodesh Esmo Shanol D'Hayachol, and therefore it's okay. But that's only beyond the Sheni Shel Goliath. Lafuki Rosh Hashanah D'Shneim Hem Ki Yom Echad Oroch Af B'Yom Sheni Aser V'Hu Adin Im Chol Rosh Hashanah B'Yom Chamishi V'Shishi V'Nolda B'Yom Chamishi Aser Mehai Taima Af B'Shabbos, because Ein Yom Tov Mechem the Shabbos, and could be that it has a din of one whole day, one long day.
that same didn't apply if, let's say, it had an apple fall from a tree on the first day of it.
Yes, I think so. All right. Now this is a fascinating halacha, and we're going to learn a piece of science that most of us are not aware of. Beitza sheyotza ruba me'erev Yom Tov. It started coming out, and then it went back into the body of the chicken. V'achach nolda b'Yom Tov muteres. Lefikach afilu bodak kina shel tarnagoles b'erev Yom Tov samach lechashecha. Right before Shkia, you checked to see if there are any eggs. V'lo yimotza beitza. U'lemochar hishkim u'motza beitza muteres. Why is that so? Says the piece of science that we're not aware of. Shetarnagoles eni yoledes balayla v'anutoilim sheme'etzva yotzaruba, and it just went back yotzaruba v'chazar, and it went back in. So if right before Shkia you checked and you didn't find any eggs there, and then you find at the end of the night an egg, we will assume that the egg was halachically laid the evening before, not the night before. Yeah, before Shkia. V'hu, and here is the important piece which takes off many halachas. V'hu sheyesh tarnagol zachar teich shishim batim ve'eno mafsik nohor she'ein bo gesher. It has to be that you're in a place where we don't have zcharim. She'im lo yikein esher shetele b'layla v'aser. Okay? Because there's a difference whether it's a fertilized egg or not if it can lay at night. Okay? Only fertilized eggs don't lay at night. This is science. This is not the...
Is that really true?
I have no idea. You're the one with the device, not me.
Never looked that up.
Okay, so by next Tuesday, I'm sure you will. Okay. Avalim loy bodak me'erev Yom Tov. Afilu leka zochar bahada shari. Even if you don't see a zochar, it's mutter. Why sha'anu tonim shevi eslo nolda? Ubeloi zochar rubam yoldes bayom. Lefikach mutter likach beitzim en eine Yehudi belel rishon shel Rosh Hashanah. Why did Talinu Shem Erev Yom Tov Noldu? We will assume that they were born in the daytime. V'chein belel sheni shel shnei Yom Tovim shel Golius. Aval loy belel sheni shel Rosh Hashanah v'lo belel Yom Tov achar Shabbos, because when both are Kodesh, we have this problem that we had in the previous sif. Says the Ramah, Ve'enu Yehudi hamevi beitzim Yom Tov Rishon u'masiach lefi tumoy shanolda ve'atzmo muter lismach olav. You can believe him if he says when it was laid. When do we believe him? When it's Yom Tov Shechal Be'emtza Shavua. Yom Tov Shechal Be'echa B'Shabbos. She'oz yishlach Hashem anolda b'Shabbos v'osa midaraisa, because ein Shabbos mechin the Yom Tov is a Isser Daraisa, is not Isser Daraisa, it's Osir. Yeah, right. Okay. Ein Yehudi Masiach Lefi Tumoy. A guy is not Nema Masiach Lefi Tumoy. This is a very important halacha. This is found in many places in Shulchan Aruch. A guy is Nema Masiach Lefi Tumoy only on something derabanan, not on something deraisa. V'davka b'yom tov rishon, al b'yom tov sheni afil shel Rosh Hashanah Neman de'einu ela b'rabanan. Even though in the previous halachas we said that Rosh Hashanah is different. We said Rosh Hashanah is different because Rosh Hashanah is both days are Vadai Kodesh. But what is the Kedusha of the second day? The Kedusha is only the Rabbanon, because we are Baki B'Kibbud Ya'acheh. We know when the real Rosh Hashanah is. So, Lagabi this halacha, we can believe the guy, because it's a Derabanan. Even though it's Vadai, yeah, but, right, okay. Not the usually not.
Since the guy is not believing,
It says it here that they usually do it during the daylight, most of the morning or the afternoon. If the hen ever lays an egg very late in the day, it's likely due to a longer internal laying cycle. 25 to 26 hours. This was where it lays slightly later each day, eventually skipping the day 2 weeks.
Okay, this is like the Israeli. It reminds me of the Israeli joke. You know, there's this joke I heard about 40 years ago that Bekama Medina, they had some politician that came from someplace in Europe to Israel, and they gave him a ride, you know, throughout the land, and he was in some place at night. It was all dark, and there was some light on in the distance. And they asked him, why is there light over there? He said, because that is a hatchery, and we have the lights arranged so that the chickens give birth every 23 hours, the exact opposite of the late cycle. We have it, we speed them up, and this way we eventually get an extra egg out of every chicken. So the guy says, now I understand. All the time that the Jews were in Europe, they're always shafting the goyim. I was thinking, what's going to happen when they're going to come to their own country? Who are they going to chip? Now I know they're cheating the chickens. Okay, that's the joke that they say. But all right. But it's clear that they usually have in the day. That's basically that's the underlying thought that's going on over there. All right. Mishnah Berurah over here. Was there something of importance? Okay, I don't recall that there was. Hashaychet targolis umatza ba beitzim gemurim. If you shech the chicken and you find inside of it whole eggs, mutaras afilu b'yom tov achar Shabbos. Whole eggs that are inside the chicken are mutter. Why is that so? Yeah. There's a halacha in Shulchan Aruch. This is a fascinating halacha. If you shech the chicken and you find eggs inside of it, are they pariv or are they fleishiks? What does it depend on? Okay, that's in the Gemara, that has to do with that. But the question is, you could have a whole egg inside a chicken, and at what point do we see it as its own being? Okay, I'm not going to get involved in all the halachas because there are a lot of pratim to it. But the bottom line is that you can have the egg inside the chicken even if it's whole and ready to go. And this is an idea. This is what's called in the Gemara uchla de ifris. Uchla de ifris means it's a piece of food inside the chicken, and you pulled off a pulka. You know what I mean? We see it as a piece of the goof of the chicken, even though it may have its own existence, and therefore it's muchan to eat al gabi imon, because we see it as part of the mother. Only when it's laid are we forced to see it as its own being. Okay. No. I just use that as an example to know you have to know when is the egg called an egg. It could be that for the being fleishiks, it stops being fleishiks at an earlier time. But as far as hachana is concerned, we still see it as part of the mother. Okay? Okay. Ches. Efroach shenolad b'Yom Tov, aser. If you have a chick that was born on Yom Tov, it's aser. V'nolad b'Shabbos, aser b'Yom Tov shachar. Okay? B'achila u'betiltul al erev mipnei shu mukseh. V'af l'batir mukseh b'Yom Tov. Moide b'mukseh kazu sha'at sheyatza Avrohom Baruch Zachariash. It didn't have any purpose. V'af ha'klav lo'yo'oichin oisai kishu b'klipasai. The chick is not called food, it's not called anything, and therefore it's mukseh. I'd just like to make a statement, which is an important statement to make. All Baalei Chayim are mukseh on Shabbos. Yeah, it's an important statement to make whenever you can. Okay.
Can't move them.
Right.
Even if they're sitting on the couch, no one's sitting on the couch.
Even if they're sitting on the couch. Okay, V'yesha v'dhum in HaTorah, v'fisha yiludei leida zu huchal la'achila. They became huchal la'achila, v'kivur shkabas yesh al ha'shachtoi, v'l'oichoi nimtza shehuchal b'Shabbos la'achlo b'yom t'shachrov. And that's a deraisa. Whereas when Shabbos ain't mechel b'yom t'shachrov. V'yesha m'shud d'Rabbanon, v'fisha b'Shabbos gufa ya mukseh, it was mukseh, v'en yochol la'achlo v'lataltlo ma'oseh yom klal, v'natir b'yom tov nimtza sheShabbos heichen l'yom tov, which is an Isser D'Rabbanan. Okay, but whatever it is, it's Asr.
What the Rav just said about all animals being mukseh
Yeah.
on Shabbos, that wouldn't be exception. This might run in a blind person who needs his dog, or will not be able to go out.
Maybe. So Zalman Auerbach says that that's called his walking stick. That's not a dog. It's a walking stick that looks like a dog.
People who pet servants like part of their family to them.
That's wonderful. So you have part of your family that's mukseh. That's all.
Like a keyboard I made.
I will. You know what? I don't really want to do this subject. There's absolutely no reliable place that I know that says that your dog or cat are not mukseh on Shabbos. There are those who try to read into an Igros Moshe that Moshe held that they're not mukseh, and it's already been proven that Moshe from other places in Igros Moshe that they're mukseh. This is from the great mistakes of. There's a Igros Moshe called Chelik Zayin. There's Chelik Ches and Chelik Tes. Zayin, Ches, and Tes were all printed after his Petira. Zayin is the most unreliable of them, and Zayin has in it a insert, which it has inserts, and you can see, it's written in as an insert, written by the family member who edited it, and he changed something in what Moshe said, so that it says that pets are not mukseh. That's, you can't get you have to get the Yad Moshe over there too.
And even if they are mukseh, why is saying that we can't walk a dog?
Well, I want to ask you a question. Theoretically, if you would walk a dog like people walk dogs where I grew up, you would be able to. They didn't walk dogs on a chain. They walked the dogs, and dogs went by themselves. That's how I grew up. You walk your dog, right? Nowadays,
Do that in the neighborhood, you'll have hysterics.
I can't help you with those kind of problems. I'm telling you about where I grew up. Now you have complaints about where I grew up, so you could send a letter to the mayor. Okay.
I can have only Shabbos if I can't have my dog.
We'll probably just check.
You have to feed your dog.
Wouldn't it be Tzar Balachayim too?
What's Tzar Balachayim?
The fact that, the Lord has to go out to relieve himself.
So you have to make arrangements. How come I can't find mukseh? There isn't a mukseh over here. Probably it's in Shabbos, right? That's a good place for it to be. Shabbos, Chil Shabbos, mukseh. Okay, Chayes. Let's see if we can find. Bali Chaim. What are we going to call this? Bali Chaim here. Or a Chaim. Ches. Hey. Okay, but this is not. This is the short version. Here it says, Kol balachayim havle mukseh af oisan shetinokis misachkim behem elam kem him yuchodim lashashuim. But this is not the long version of this. Where is the long version of this? Here, where is it? All right, we'll have to find it. All right, Leonard, next week I'll come in with the upschlag of this Igris Moshe. All right, Leonard, just remind me when I speak to you next week before we take off. Okay. Okay, next, Siman. This Siman is not very popular because it says over here a halacha which many people don't believe is true. Okay. Also, the Shabbos leika b'Yom Tov. You have a fire on Yom Tov, you're not allowed to put out a fire. Afilu imroya beisosh in Nisraf, you see your house is burning down. Just like on Shabbos, you're not allowed to put out a fire. On Yom Tov, you're also not allowed to put out a fire. V'ein shom sakonis nefashos. Obviously, if there's sakonis nefashos, the halach is different. V'ein mechabem bakas. If you have a log that's on fire, you're not allowed to put it out. V'afilu kedei shelo yis'ashen abayis. You don't want the house to get smoked. O kedera, that the kedei is going to get smoked. O kedei l'shamish mitosoi. V'yesh oimrim the davka im efsher lahatzel kedera below kibui. If I have no way that I can save my fire without putting out save my pot without putting out the fire.
In the pot, maybe?
Yes. Okay. Avulam efsher lahatzel olavashel bekedera be'iyin acher rak shechabe mutar lechabos. If the only way that you can cook is if you have to be machabe, then you're allowed to. What this means in English is if you want to make rice. So the way you make rice is that you put it on a big fire, and then after it starts to cook, you turn the fire down. That's the way that you cook it. In other words, you right? So then that would be permissible to be done. Okay? Now I'm not even sure that that's permissible to be done, because I believe they can make rice even on a big fire. There are ways to do it. But if you have something that needs to be lower the fire, you're allowed to do it. V'chein nirali iker. V'chein bebayis im yisaref habayis v'lo yilo mokom lechol shom v'yafsid tzudosoi mutar lechabos. If you can't run into the house, take your food out before the house burns down, then you're allowed to put the fire out. Otherwise, you have to take the food out and let it burn down. Yeah, but that's if you have you have to have where to eat.
Right.
Well, if you have a porch, if you have, okay, right.
This thing have practical applications. Most people where you live in buildings with lots of dealers, so any fire, there's a potential risk of it spreading to other people.
I want to tell you something. I vehemently disagree with you. I'm going to share with you a shayla that I had about 3 years ago, and there are people who have nerves of steel. I was asked this question on Sunday morning. There was a people that they made a shel brachos in their house, and they lit on a tray Shabbos candles. All the ladies lit on one tray Shabbos candles, and in the middle of the meal on Shabbos, it burst into one big conflagration. Okay? So the lady of the house got a bucket, filled it up with water, and then told her husband, go and ask the Rav if we're allowed to put it out. Okay? They went to my house, but Baruch Hashem, I was in Beit Shemesh, not in Yerushalayim, and until the guy came back, the lady was afraid that something's going to happen, and she poured the water onto the fire, and the whole thing picked itself up and landed on the floor and continued burning. Yeah, it became one big candle, and that's what happened. And then it burnt itself out, and nothing happened. Okay? Now, I just want to tell you something. In our buildings that we have here, the chances of a fire spreading are extremely low. The only time that there's a chance of fire spreading is if it's going to hit a gas pipe or electric wires. But your walls, not this is not a building, but a real building, it's all stone. There's nothing that's going to happen. All that'll happen at best is you'll destroy a room. Right? No, it doesn't spread. Now, that's a general statement. I'm not saying what I would say. If you're speaking about there's old people and there's smoke inhalation, there's other factors that have to be, figured out. But if you will call up the fire company and ask them the average house fire, mukseh, and what damage does it do, you will be very surprised on the minimal amount of damage that it does. Okay? So when somebody tells me, I was in a house on Shabbos once that they decided they want to save money, so they didn't put the light on in the bathroom, they put a yahrzeit candle there, and the yahrzeit candle caught onto the plastic, and what? Yeah, and what? Okay, so okay, so I'm just saying, but you have to know what is really, And now in America, I don't know about England. In America, houses are made out of timber and air. There's nothing to them, and they go in a second. So now I would just say, the average, he lived in Muncie. In Muncie, when you lived in Muncie, there were single-family homes. Now, that single-family home has 8 people living in it. But in the Muncie that you lived in, if the house burnt down, the chances of it going anywhere is...
Depends how many trees you have.
That's what I'm going to say, but you have to know.
Muncie had a lot of
There's trees. We weren't worried about trees. We were worried about the next door neighbor, and there was a good difference.
The difference is usually...
Muncie has good plants.
Yeah. Okay. So you have to know, in every locale, you have to know exactly how serious the question is. Yeah, that does the job. Okay. Anyways, but the bottom line that I just would like to share with you is that it's usher to put out a fire. That's basically what we said, and this means that you're not allowed to flick your cigarette either, okay? Because that causes things to go out.
The fire's going to burn your lunch. Does that make it any reason that you can put it out?
What fire is burning your lunch? There's...
You have your lunch in the kitchen, there's a fire there. It's going to ruin your food.
Yeah, if it's going to ruin your food, you can put it out.
Is there a shoot first and ask later? Meaning, I don't know if it's going to put it out by the time I get to the rabbi's house. I'm not exactly sure where, what, when, and how, and I don't know my locale and all these details.
So what do you want to do?
Put it out because I'm nervous. I don't know.
So you have a suffix?
Yeah.
I think if you have a real suffix, then I think that you could be put it out. Okay. Now, I don't know what the word real suffix is, right? Okay. So, but if you have a real suffix, that's
But I have a suffix that's based on
You're in a panic
building
mode.
rule knowledge. I just see a big fire and I see my house and I see lots of people and it's getting like a little nerve-wracking around here. Too bad on you.
I'm not sure I understand.
You feel like it's a suffix, but I don't actually have every detail worked out to.
That's fine. If you, let's just say, you're standing after 120 years in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, could you say that I really thought that there's a chance that there might...
I guarantee you, at that moment of time, I'm not.
I'm asking you.
I don't know. There's going to be a disconnect. At that point, there won't be like, I don't know. In 120 years from now, when everything's burnt down. Well,
so people in panic mode are maybe not responsible for that what they're doing. Doesn't give them special heter.
Okay.
Right?
But is that it? Okay.
No, that's
There's no shoot first. There's no like, I'm very nervous, put it out and ask a rabbi afterwards.
no. That's like in anything, you know.
I'm not sure if I can get to the rabbi by the time anything happens. Not a real. I don't have the details worked out if it's concrete or if it's sheetrock or how much sheetrock I have caught by the concrete and where my pipes are. I don't have it worked out. I just know there's a big fire, lots of people, and I have neighbors.
Okay, so if that's all you know, it sounds from the way you described it right now that you don't know. That's called you have a suffix.
Okay.
Okay, but you know, you have to have a suffix. All right.
You're saying they have the special cloths now that if something was burning on the stove, that or the oven, you take it, you cover it up, and it extinguishes the fire. So
How does it extinguish the fire?
Suffocates it.
That's called putting it out.
yeah. So they also
That's also to do.
Yeah.
Right. You
If
could.
a towel, I don't want a towel got close to the candle, whatever. And someone just threw it into a metal sink.
Through what? Into the middle?
The towel that was on fire into a metal sink.
Okay, that's fine.
That's fine.
You didn't put it out. You
That's
put
by
it.
Moving it, you're gonna put some of that goes out.
One second. If you, I would imagine you didn't change anything in the fire when you're throwing it either. Just there is no isser of being machaba if you move a candle, you move it slowly. No, it's well, your tile that's on it. What? Yeah. Now we don't know what the what the technical part of that is, but it's over halacha. Now, therefore, you could do it with a guy because it doesn't have to have any malacha to it. All right, but anyways, this is the concept over here, which is very important. There's never a heter to be machaba, so if you could eat on your porch, then you have to let your house burn down. Right? That's basically what it says. Okay, I would just like to share with you a Igros Moshe, which is relevant to this halacha. The Igros Moshe says that if you have a choice to do one Isser Daraisa or many Isurim Darabanan, which one should you do? Okay, Rav Moshe says one Isser Daraisa. He says that that's less. And this has to do...
How many? What's the ratio?
He's speaking about
One to
kiboy
two.
in
One to
regard
two,
to turning
one
on
to two.
another fire. That's what he's speaking about. On Yom Tov, that's what he's speaking about. And he says that doing one Isser D'Oraisa is only one Avera. And when there's a tzad that it's mutter, that's better to do. Okay. Okay, I'm going to read right now a Bir Halacha because, I like to read the things that are hard to say over. Bir Halacha, if yesh lo bayis acher, then you're not allowed. Okay, I'm Beis Yosef, Shevi Das HaMordechai, B'Shem Rabbeinu Elchanan, Demekel Keshelo Yeh lo bayis acher loder bo b'Yom Tov. I'm not going to I'll have where to eat, but I'm not going to have a place to live. Okay? Is that enough of a reason to be mater for me to put the fire out? It's a tzarech yontif, but it's not oichel nefesh. And there,
Depend on the climate, no? If it's 10 below zero where you are, then...
you didn't hear the words that I said. I said it's tzarech yontif. It's just not oichel nefesh. The climate is not going to make it oichel nefesh. It's just going to make it tzarech yontif.
I don't know. If you freeze, you're not eating.
We're only speaking about vegetarians. If I, like with shinoi, like putting bags with water around it, not using a
We're not talking about that. We're not. That'll be mutter to do.
in all circumstances.
That's mutter to do. In any case of Hesed, you're allowed to do that. That's gram kivo. If Malcolm Hesed, that's permissible to be done. Okay, I think we'll stop over here.